Hello and welcome to the Rock and Roll Station podcast, episode 1. Today, I'm going to be talking to someone from one of my all-time favorite bands, Alan Lane Nolan from the band Piper. Piper was a band in the 70s which included Billy Squier. They released 2 records, self-titled Piper and the second, Can't Wait. They toured with Kiss, Angel, The Babies, The Runaways, and a few others. Still to this day, I listen to Piper. Both of those records are my top 10 favorite records. When I describe Piper to friends, I always say they're like a heavy Stones. If you haven't had a chance to check out either one of those 2 records from Piper, I really highly recommend that you do. Before we get to Alan, I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Mickey Allen Kravitz, Mac Hair Products. We have hair growth support shampoos and conditioners, purple shampoo and conditioners, eyebrow growth serum, styling products. Check out machair.com. That's M-A-K hair.com. And now, we're going to welcome our first guest on the Rock and Roll Station podcast, episode 1, Alan Lane Nolan. And we have Alan on the phone. Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to call. You know, we've talked in the last week, and you know what Piper has meant to me growing up. And I'm just so happy that the first podcast for the new Rock and Roll Station podcast can be with somebody from Piper.
Awesome. I'm excited that the both Piper albums are on iTunes now, which is really, I don't know how they got there, but they're there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
Okay, so let's start back at the very beginning. Before you even went to New York, met Billy, got in Piper. So you grew up in Kansas. We talked about this even when I was a kid. You told me when I first met you, the first rock band I ever met, for anyone who cares, was the band Piper. And I skipped out of school, found the hotel, went down, hung out with you guys all day, and you had told me I moved to New York with $100 and 2 guitars. And that was my whole thing of growing up, and this is what you got to do to be in a band. So you grew up in Kansas.
Yeah.
What was the first, music that you got into that got you into rock and roll?
Well, I'm the age group that everybody started playing, wanted to get a guitar and everything because of the Beatles. When we saw the Ed Sullivan Show debut, and I say every kids like me wanted to instantly go get a guitar and comb their hair down on their forehead because we were all greasing our hair back in those days before the Beatles. But it was the Beatles. But also, I heard 50s stuff as a real little kid. And so some of that got in there too. Like I heard some, I remember hearing some, Everly Brothers and Neil Sedaka and stuff like that, before the Beatles. And, so there was some of that in there too, but the big bang was the Beatles, of course.
Of course. Now, when did you get your first guitar?
My brother got a guitar when I was 9-ish or something, and I just commandeered it. I just, I was more interested in it than he was, and I just, kept it in my room all the time. And got there were these Beatles songbooks called the Golden Beatles, and there was a blue one and a red one, and it had all their songs in there, and that's where I, looked at the the dots, the chord charts, and, it shows you where to put your fingers. And I just, self-taught, just figured it out, like most of us did, I think. And, just kept learning chords. And then since I already knew the songs, because I didn't read music, I strummed along and sang the songs out of the songbook. But then immediately I discovered that the songs were not, the music notation was not in the original key. So I just instinctively knew that, that's not the right key, it's this one. And so I was already transposing the keys of these songs. And I remember this friend of my older brother, he came over and he saw my songbook, and he says, well, you're transposing the keys. And he was surprised by that, that I had figured out how to transfer, put the song in a different key. But that was instinctive as well. I just knew. Yeah, I just had a good ear. So, I had fun with it. A lot of fun.
What was that first guitar, by the way?
It was, I'll tell you, it was called a Barclay, Barclay. It's a Barclay, which was pretty much a Silvertone or a K or any of those or Harmony, any of those kind of guitars. And it was a really small, like what we would call a parlor guitar, really small box. And, it was a piece of junk, and it had steel strings, and the old, you always hear the old story was, my fingers bled when I was learning to play.
Right.
That exactly happened to me because, your fingertips are so tender, and you overexpose, you just do it for you're so into it that you don't wait to get calluses, and so you just repetition over and over and over, and it makes your fingers bleed from under the cuticle,
Right.
So,
so with your bloody fingers, what was your first band? Who did you start playing with?
Well, I don't know if you want to go way back. I mean, I attempted to have a band with some of my schoolmates when I was, I don't know, like 11 or 12, but they could, and I could have done it. I was already playing, and but they weren't able to do that. So even though they had instruments, and this one kid had a keyboard player, if they had an instrument, they didn't know how to play it. I was the only one who had figured out, on his own, how to play it. And I don't think we had, the options in those days. I mean, there was no cool rock and roll guy to show you what to do. So you really only had, like traditional piano lessons, and that kind of thing.
Right.
There was no, local guy who happened to be a rocker that could show you how to play Chuck Berry. There wasn't anybody like that,
Right. Plus, you were in the middle of Kansas too.
Yeah, you had to just figure it out, and it wasn't just Kansas. I mean, you ask people my age, and everybody says, yeah, we watched bands on television, and they'd be playing, like a bar chord, and we didn't know what that was, and so we'd go to a mirror and put our fingers in the kind of position that we visually saw the hand in, and sometimes we were able to learn a new chord that way, just by visually. Oh, his fingers were kind of like that, and so we go. Mess around a little bit and go, oh, there it is, So,
right.
So we didn't have any, right? There's no videos or, there's none of that. I mean, we just, there were lots of variety shows with rock bands at the time, and we would watch them, and we would pick up stuff by visually watching it, watching their hands. Once in a while, the camera would, stay on their hands for a little bit. Oh, what's that?
Right.
So we were just grabbing it, clutching at whatever we could, any kind of knowledge.
And if it sounded good, then it was right.
Yeah, I mean, if you were, were able to see the guy's hand position, you were, at least me, I was able to. I think that's how I first got the idea of a bar chord. I just kind of put that together. I said, well, okay, he's playing an E, but he's laying his finger over there, so that's like, and I kind of just intuitively figured that out, But yeah, that's what. I mean, we didn't have any people that there were no guitar teachers. There's a lot of self-taught players that are really great.
Yeah,
and I hear people say that, oh, well, you can tell that that guy can't read music. He's never studied music and stuff, and of course, then, and people, the musicians in the know, we know that the Beatles couldn't. You're not picking on them, but they couldn't read music. We knew that. So you can be self-taught. There's wonderful self-taught.
Oh yes, exactly.
All over the place. I mean, just but I think people would be surprised. But no, we don't write down. We don't sit there and write down the notes on a staff. Right. We don't do that. We just remember it. We play by ear and we remember it. And and you might write the chords above the words, that kind of thing, to help yourself remember it. But I mean, that's how we do it. People are amazed by that. How do you remember? But once you do it yourself, you go, oh, okay.
So did you, after your childhood, your high school mates or whatever you're playing with, before you left Kansas, did you do any gigs with anyone?
Tons of gigs. I started gigging when I was 15. Finally, by that time, there were a couple other guys, and we're in high school, and we could sort of play well enough to go out and play, church dances. We had the CYO halls; they had dances, and there wasn't anything else to do. I always tell this too. In those days, there wasn't anything else to do but go to the band that was playing in the town hall or the church hall on the weekend. There wasn't anything else to do, so everybody went to it. So if there was a band, it didn't matter what band it was just a live band, and everybody went. The whole town, and small towns. But there would be there'd be 300 people or something.
Oh, nice.
It'd be like 200 people. It'd be a nice crowd. The place is packed, and you play for 3 hours. It was like 45 minutes at 15-minute break. You do 3 sets with 2 breaks, and that was so you play 3 hours. So you got to know, 30 songs, right?
What was some of the material you guys were playing back then?
It was just the records that we had, of course. So I had Grand Funk and Beatles and Hendrix. That's about all I had. So it was just everything we could manage to pull off of those 3 bands, and there was a couple of other. I mean, we probably tried to play. Maybe we might try to play All Right Now by Free, because that was of that time. So there were some other ones. But again, I had that record. See, so
right.
It was just
so that was your training.
A cover band is really just, you take the guys in the band and the material they're playing. It just means that those are the records those guys have. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, if you're not hearing it, it's because they didn't have the record.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't just like go on YouTube and listen to something then. I mean, it wasn't accessible. If you didn't have the record, you never heard it.
Right.
It was. Of course, we'd listen to the radio all the time, which was before FM, so it was AM radio, but you'd listen to that all the time in your car. You'd listen to it at home too. You'd listen to AM top 40 radio on your transistor radio, little square radio, and you'd hold it up to your ear, and it had one earphone, because it was mono,
right.
It wasn't stereo. It's just one earphone in your ear, so not 2, just the one. And
boy, has time changed. Times have changed so much, man.
I ride my bicycle And one hand on the handlebars, and the other hand was I was holding the radio up to my ear while I was, driving the bicycle, which sounds crazy, but kids are crazy. I mean, it's like, hey, this is I like listening to music, so I'm going to listen to my radio while I'm riding my bike because that's cool. Because that stuff, whatever a kid wants to do, they'll do.
Right. Okay, so you told me a story. So I had asked you earlier.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I had asked you, when you said you moved to New York, and I said, how did you pick New York over Los Angeles at the time? And you told me a story. So tell everybody about that. Why you picked New York to go to?
Well, I was, I read rock and roll magazines from the newsstand, like Cream and Circus, etc.
Right.
There was this other one called Rock Scene, and it had, big time, world famous international rock star stories, but it also covered the local New York scene, and that was the only time that it was the only information. It's the only time I ever saw a local scene of unsigned bands that were playing their own material, and they were being represented and written about in a magazine. And it came out every month. I think it was monthly. And so every month, it would have a big star on the cover. It would have Elton John or Led Zeppelin or Queen or whoever,
Right.
And articles about those guys. But somewhere mixed in there, it would have, the Dolls had just broken up. It was about 75 or something. The Dolls had just broken up, so it still was covering what the different guys in the band were doing, without being in the Dolls anymore. And it covered the other, and so the local bands at the time, and this is just the bands that were, no record deal, just playing in bar. There was a little bar scene of, I don't know, half a dozen bars or something in Manhattan. And there was some in Queens too, but I was a new guy, and so I didn't go to Queens. So I lived in Manhattan, and I just stayed in Manhattan. So, but I didn't want to, ignore the outer boroughs, because there was bands from there too. But I only saw bands in Manhattan. So anyway, there were several that we went to all the time. You've heard of CBGB's, you've heard of Matt's City. There was a place called Mother's. There was Club 88, and and some others. And so and the bands at the time that played all the time, and there were tons I'm leaving out. I can't rattle them off, but Blondie, Talking Heads, Johnny Thunders, and the Heartbreakers. It was just the Heartbreakers at that time. They added his name on top later, but Johnny was from the Dolls, and everything.
Right.
And they had great pop songs. I mean, it was really raunchy, very cool. And I forgot to mention the Ramones. So about half a dozen bands there that were we just that was the scene. We just kind of gravitated around those bands and just the nightlife was great. I mean, we saw these bands all the time and hung out, and I saw all of those bands just a million times.
Yeah, you told me that you had wrote a letter to that magazine.
Oh yeah. Well, I had,
when you were still back in Kansas before you went.
Yeah, I had played in these cover bands ever since I was 16, and finally, I was about 20 years old, and I just started messing around with writing my own songs. I just kind of thought I could do it, I think that's what happens to people, is that you just sort of start getting into your own head, and you just start messing around and, trying to make stuff up, and then, like you see, like, oh, maybe I can write a song, and you just kind of dabble, and, but once you write one that, that makes sense, that has a structure, once you do that, it only takes one time, and then you're off and rolling. Once you get a structure, that, then suddenly you understand, like, oh yeah, okay, these are the building blocks of writing a song. I think that happens to everybody at some point. And then once you do that, you're just kind of off and running, and then the songs just keep coming, and but I think you're just kind of entertaining yourself for the sake of it,
Right.
When these songs come out, and so I decided, well, I'm gonna have an original band. So it was a power trio, which was that was a really popular thing at the time. We had a bunch of power trios at that time, and this was before punk rock. So we're still, we got really long hair. Really long hair was popular then. Rock musicians had really long, not just kind of long, but it was almost like a competition to see how long your hair could be.
Right. Yeah.
It was, we just the longer your hair was, the cooler you were, So I was still in Kansas, but I was playing original material. And then I wrote actually, it was a friend of mine who talked me into writing a letter to the Rock Scene magazine, because they had a section in there was new bands. And it would be, and go like, oh, yeah, Tough Darts, Robert Gordon, blah, blah, blah. And it would have, all these other bands, So I wanted to get in that little, or it was a reoccurring, every month they had the new band section. So I wanted to get in there, and my friend kind of talked me into it. So I wrote this really, kind of sarcastic and just kind of over the top letter, and send them a picture, because they said, well, send us a letter and a picture, and maybe we'll put you in there. No guarantee. So I sent them a letter and picture, and they put it in.
Nice.
So okay, now my band's in the Rock Scene magazine, which is published in New York, and so I thought, well, I've been called. I took that as a call. I'm in the magazine now, and so if I show up, I'll be able to say, well, yeah, and I'm so and so, and I'm in the magazine. Look, which kind of like
that legitimized everything. You're like, okay, so now I'm really a musician now.
Legit now. I'm in the magazine.
Correct.
Picture in the magazine, exactly. So I thought that was, better get out there before it dies down. So I did.
How did you go? Did you take a bus? Did you fly, drive?
I flew with my guitar and my little suitcase, and 20 years old, really didn't know anybody. I knew one guy, and you just kind of start crashing different places because you're only 20, and when you're 20, people sort of take care of you because they know that you're young and innocent, and you really are very naive, and they people know that, and so they help you. So when you're young, that's the time to go and try something like that. It sounds crazy to put yourself out there like that, and you don't know anybody, and you don't have any money. And it is. It's completely insane. But because of the kindness of people, they'll help you. And,
right.
and so that's what I always had, places to crash, and just, one thing led to it. Well, then I started going to auditions in the Village Voice, which always had musician listings. So-and-so looking for Flash/glam guitarist, no flakes or something, and have the phone number, and you'd call them, and they'd say, "Yeah, come Thursday night and audition." And so and it was all telephone in those days. You had to call people on the phone and actually speak to them. So and no answering machines either. So they actually had to be there to pick up the phone. That's how primitive.
Yeah, long time ago.
If you were outside, you missed the call.
Yeah, and that sucked. If it was an audition, yeah, you sucked. That sucked.
A lot of parties too, because you were outside when your buddy called and he says, "Hey, come over, blah blah blah, so and so." And you missed the call, and the next day the guy, "Man, you should come over. I called you, but you missed the call. You were outside."
All right. So how did you end up meeting Bill Aucoin?
Well, so I'm going to these auditions. I'm trying to find a band, because that's what I came there for, was to be, get in a band and be in New York where I could do something with it, because I knew that staying in the Midwest or wherever, it wasn't going to go anywhere. And I had got that through my head that, okay, you got to go to New York or L.A. I just instinctively, nobody told me that, but I just thought, well, you have to go to those places, because that's where it's happening. That's where the people are, and I knew that. So, where was I going with that, Mickey?
Oh, how you met Bill Aucoin. Hey, before we get into how you met Bill, it reminded me something. Living in Kansas, and I grew up in Kansas City. What was your first concert, by the way? I'm just kind of curious.
I was a kid, and my first hippie rock concert was Frank Zappa.
Oh,
at
wow!
Memorial. That was 71.
You said Memorial Hall?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But that was my first, hippie era show. But I saw some, it was a bubblegum review, 3 or 4 bubblegum bands on the same label. You remember Kama Sutra label and Buddha Records?
Yes.
And they would have Ohio Express, Lemon Pipers, and there was another one. And those were the guys that were doing, yummy, yummy, yummy.
I got love in my tummy. Yeah, exactly.
Look, had 2 guitars, bass, and drums, and they just chugged along. And, I still like it. But, and I still like the Trogs, Wild Thing.
Of course.
Awesome.
My first concert was also at Memorial Hall, which was, believe it or not, I was a huge Sweet fan, so I went to go see the Sweet. And Eric Carmen opened, then Bob Seger, and then the Sweet. What an amazing concert. Oh, now I know what the world is about. Then my second concert was Piper and Angel.
Yeah.
And then Piper was the first band that I met in real life. But anyway, so now you're in New York, and how did you hook up with Bill Aucoin? Because that kind of changed everything for you.
I went to, so I finally, I go to this audition, and it turned out to be the guys who turned out to be stars, spelled like the
STARZ, yeah.
Yeah, just like the TV but it's the band.
Right. Michael Lee Smith, great singer, always loved Stars.
Yeah, and so I auditioned for them, and they were awesome, and I almost made it, but they opted for it, so I was first runner-up, and the guy that beat me out was a guy named Richie, and he, so they were saying, well, we love you, thanks for coming down, blah, 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 seeing around or whatever, and I just right away, because, I had met Bill and Sean at rehearsals because they were very proactive. They checked out, they came down and they listened to, they came down and listened to us when I was auditioning. They came down and they heard me. So when I didn't get the gig, Bill said to me, stick around and we'll find a band for you. Because they all liked it. Stick around, we'll find a band for you. So, because I offered my services as a guitar roadie to Stars, and they took me up on it, and they paid me a weekly salary. It was enough for me to stay in New York and be there. And I went on the road a little bit with Stars, not much, yeah, but a little bit. And then New Year's Eve '75, they said, well, we want you to help the light crew at the Kiss Nassau Coliseum show. So there I was being a roadie for Kiss on New Year's Eve '75. And so we're backstage in the hallway, and Bill says, "Oh, Billy, come over." And it was Billy Squier. And he comes over, and that was the first. He introduced me. That was the first time I had met him. But I had already been up to the office. Bill had me up to the office to listen to his demo, Billy's demo, 4-song demo. I had already heard that. I thought it was great. It was right up my alley, and I told Bill that, this is great. And it was. It was exactly in the pocket of, the music that I liked, and it was just right up my alley.
Do you remember what those songs were that were on the demo? And do you still have that demo?
No, I don't. If I did, I don't now. But that'd be great to have.
I would love to hear that, by the way. That would be amazing.
It was pretty great. A couple of them, I think he recorded at Bearsville Studios, which was up by Woodstock or something. I don't know.
What songs were they?
I think it was Out of Control, What You Gonna Do, Sail Away, and The Road, yeah.
All right. Great songs, all 4 great songs.
Great songs, and encapsulated in that was all of the things that because it was like the Stones and, like Derek and the Dominoes, just kind of blended together. That was my impression of that. And so I was very much into both of those things, and they were blended together in a really nice way. And I still think that's the way that music goes down. But for me,
I've always said, I turn people on to Piper all the time, and I always tell them, if you like the Stones, this is a heavier Stones and better. I mean, those 2 records actually changed my life. I mean, set the bar high for everything that I really, started listening to for the rest of my life.
Well, that's, everybody has something like that turns them on in that way. But it wasn't just, because the first thing that turned me on was the Beatles, right? The Beatles and Stones and all that. And then there was a later version of the Stones, that turned me on too. So it's like, And actually, the Beatles had that too. They had the later version of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So those two bands had the early version and the later version, both of which I just totally loved. But all the new stuff coming up was, so there was constantly, and the music was so good for, about 20 years there, that there was just always something new that came up that you go, yeah, man.
All right, so you meet Billy backstage at a Kiss concert. You'd already heard the demo. Then what was the next step? What happened?
Well, Billy wanted to put together a band, and so Bill helped him do that. And he just, he said, go find your band, and and he said, just go rehearse wherever you want to, and I'll send me the bill or whatever, so so go put together a band, go find your players. So he but he found me through my auditioning with Stars. Is where Aucoin became aware of me through Stars and suggested me to Billy. He suggested me, Billy and I to one another. Okay,
right.
So, yeah.
Now, had he already? Were you like the last piece to the puzzle, or
no? Well, I mean, he already had the drummer and bass player. So, but I was the first person that I went in and we just head to head, just me and him together, head to head, playing guitar and singing, and he found out that I could harmonize with him, and he found out that I could play exactly what he wanted me to, in other words, play this, just like that, and I would just do that instantly. I just had, I just always had an ear like that. If you go da-da-da-da, and I'll get da-da-da-da right back in your face, just
right. So you guys are rehearsing at SIR, the whole band. Finally, he puts the band together. You guys are rehearsing at SIR. Like, for how long did this time go on before you went in to record?
I don't remember, but it wasn't very long. A couple of months or something.
Wow. And you hadn't even played a live gig. You're just rehearsing at SIR. People are coming in. Labels are coming in.
The album came out before we ever played anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, we were completely whatever you call that when a guy just, where you have a manager and he develops, that was a development deal.
Yeah, those development deals don't exist anymore, really.
He same thing with Stars. He took them and helped them to develop. Did the same thing with Piper, So he had a little rock and roll factory,
So a couple months at SIR, and I saw the picture where you guys were rehearsing. There's Carly Simon. There's all these other bands are rehearsing along with you in there.
Yeah.
So then you go in to record that first record. John Anthony's mixing it, and Eddie Kramer, John Anthony's recording it, and Eddie Kramer mixed it. How long did that first record take to record? Now, I understand that you guys mixed it 3 times. We'll get into those 3 mixes because I don't know what the difference is in those 3. I'd like to know. But how long did it take to record? And you were telling me how free Billy was with you letting you kind of do your own thing.
Well, that was, he did both. He had specific things that he wanted to hear, and we gave it to him. But there was also leeway within the, you might say, well, okay, on the first verse, I want Tommy to, play some embellishments, And then the second verse, I want Alan to do that. And then the third verse, I'll do that, And so we shared, but that's something that all bands with, that kind of improv, the idea of the improv on top of the structure, that's a thing that
right.
Country bands do that real well, like with the guitar, and then the next one is the steel, and then the next one is the, fiddle, so that thing is that's a classic, that's not new. I mean, that's a very classic way to, and it makes the song interesting because a different person is doing the embellishments for each verse. So, and it, and it makes it be a, like a group sound. So, but I think those things are just kind of natural,
Did the recording session go pretty smooth? And how long did that first record take to record?
I don't know. It didn't take very long. It probably took too long, but it didn't take that long.
Okay.
I don't know how to, to me, everything takes too long.
Right, but those songs on that first record are just amazing.
But and I do love the songs on that first record and good playing too. But the sound quality, and this is getting into production stuff that, only musicians are going to care about. But yeah, the production wasn't, it's kind of messy, but it's still a good record. It has great songs on there, great performances, but there was some tone quality things that I think was left something to be desired. But that, and I've talked about this with people before, and I just think it was just kind of that 70s production frame of mind that was prevalent at that time. There were certain things, like I talked about how they would put tape all over the cymbals and the drum head. Yeah, nobody does that anymore. But at that time they were trying to deaden everything so that they could have everything under control, and then they'd add the reverb electronically and stuff like that, as opposed to getting the sound of the room and stuff. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But
did you hear? So this record was mixed. It was mixed 3 times. So did you hear all 3 mixes?
Yeah, but I wouldn't even be able to. If I heard them now, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Because it's so nitpicky.
Right.
But the reason they do that is that when you hand the master to the label, and sometimes they reject it. Sometimes they don't like it. They go, "No, you don't like it. Go mix it again." So you go mix it again, and so that was either they were either remixed because the band wanted to remix, or they were remixed because the label didn't like the mix.
And if it was the label, I guarantee you that you could have went in and made the smallest change, and they go, "Oh yeah, it sounds much better," because they don't really know.
I wasn't privy to. I wasn't in the inner circle, and again, it was too many cooks. Somebody has to be the boss. You can't have 5 guys in there, because everybody wants their part to be a little bit louder.
Of course.
Somebody has to be the boss, because you just, you'd never, you would never get done.
It's never, if you, everything I've recorded, I settle. I'm like, no, I could make it better, but okay, I'm done. Okay, so at that point, the record's done. Now, you're getting ready to go out on tours, but you told me that you, actually, I read it in postcards. Some stuff that you gave me is amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
There's postcards in there from you to your mom. And Yeah, if you want those back, I'm free. I'm happy to give them back to you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like reading some of this stuff, and it's like, hey, I'm in Dallas, miss you guys, blah blah blah. And then one that says I got picked to go on promotional tour with Billy. It says I got selected to go, and I was like, what a strange word to be. I was selected, so he picked you out of the rest of the guys in the band to go on a promotional tour. So was that promotional tour before you guys went on the road, or had you already gone on tour?
That was to try to get. That's a radio promo tour to schmooze the job, and to get them to play your record. Which. That's an old-fashioned thing, just fly all around and trying to get him to play the record,
Was it a good time flying around with Billy on that promotional tour?
I didn't really. It wasn't really. It was kind of like work. It wasn't really,
Right.
It was kind of like work.
So at that point, was that before you had gone on the road with anyone, or had you already done any touring yet?
I don't remember, but I think that we had probably done some touring by that time.
Okay, so you toured with Kiss, Angel, the Babies, the Runaways, and others. Now, touring with Kiss at that time must have been very strange, because at that time, if people remember, in the 70s, people still did not know what those guys looked like in public. There was no pictures taken.
Yeah.
And you're out on the road with them, hanging out with them during the day, sound check, this and that. What kind of stories was there with those guys?
Well, I mean, we saw them up at the office because we had the same manager.
Bill Aucoin, correct.
So we're friendly with them, and we knew one another on a behind the scenes, just regular basis of, hi, Paul, hi, Gene, whatever, I mean, there was no, like I said, they don't wear their makeup 24 hours a day,
Right.
So, yeah, we saw them all the time, and so there was, it wasn't like, nobody was tripping on that or anything. I mean, it's just, we knew that was their shtick. We knew that was the showbiz.
Right.
And like I never hung out with I think once or twice we were all in the same hotel room, chilling out, having a beer or something, after the gig or something. But it wasn't, all the time. I mean, once or twice.
Right.
They were, I remember Ace was talking about somebody, I don't really know who he was talking to, he was just telling somebody how, he has a house that he's never seen, that type of thing, So they were making enough money where they had to buy shit for tax deductions, that type of thing.
Right.
So, one time at the Christmas party, Ace came up to the bar, I have a bar at the party, the Kiss Christmas party, and Ace goes up and he just grabs a bottle of whatever it was and just was, drinking out of the bottle, and the bartender goes, "Hey, don't do that," and Ace says, "I can do whatever I want. I can buy this whole place," one of those kind of deals.
So you were telling me one time that you were out with Kiss, and Paul was you went over to Paul's room or something, and he was showing you some open tuning stuff.
He invited me in the room one time. It was afternoon, and he showed me. I guess he had just read a Keith Richard interview, and he had learned how to do the open Keith Richard tunings. Then he showed that to me. And, and he says that, and when you have the tuning, look how easy it is. And, he starts playing Brown Sugar, and it sounded exactly like it. So it was like, yeah, that's it. That's it. And so I've used that in my own songs. Several of my own songs I incorporated that. It's a cool tuning. I mean, it's just a great tuning. It's really a banjo tuning. It's an open G tuning,
Right.
And very cool. But Keith really that became his signature. He really milked it. He did some great things with that tuning. That we all, everybody digs it because it's great. It is. But yeah, Paul showed me that.
And then you also toured with Angel, the Babies, and the Road. Okay, when I first saw you, my first concert with you guys was Angel and you guys. Did you have any good touring experiences with Angel?
I don't remember a single time that we hung out with them except one time their bus broke down and they rode in our bus to the next gig. So we were, shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
But I still don't remember. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any particularly anything that stands out about that one way or the other. I think we do.
What about with the Babies? That was a great show. You guys and the Babies, it was great.
Oh, actually, it was the Babies who rode with us.
Oh, was it?
Was it the Babies? Yes, it was the Babies.
Okay.
Because I remember, Michael.
Oh, yeah, Michael Corby.
Michael Corby? Was that it? Yeah. Yeah, I remember Michael. And I don't remember ever speaking to actually any of the rest of them. I talked to Michael a little bit. He was a little bit outgoing. And but, that's just me. Maybe the other guys talk to him, and I don't know. I mean, I think didn't Wally go and play with Rod Stewart after that, maybe?
Yes, he did.
And
no, Tony Brock did. Sorry, Tony Brock did.
And then the first thing I said to Michael, to Corby, was I go, that's your guitar looks like Steve Marion has a guitar like that. And he goes, this is Steve's guitar.
Oh my.
He had one of Marion's guitars, the little, it's like a Dwight. It's like a Les Paul Jr.
You toured with the Runaways? Any memories from that? Because that was at a time when the Runaways, they're one of the first all-girl rock bands, and they've got crazy stories, those girls.
We were backstage with them, everybody on the show was backstage, and, but they were teenage girls, and we didn't, really bug them. It was just kind of, I think there was a kind of a bit of a vibe that's like, we were grown men and they were teenage girls, what I mean?
Right.
So, hands off type thing,
Yeah, exactly.
And the only one actually, the Jackie was a bit more, she just came off more mature, and I think we all talked to Jackie. I mean, Jackie was friendly and accessible.
Okay, so after that, now you get ready to go in to do the second record. So while you were on the on the road, was Billy showing you riffs and stuff for the second record, or was it after you guys were touring, you just went straight into the rehearsal and then to the studio? How did that second record come?
Well, I mean, he was the writer, and he was always working on stuff. And when we got off the road, it just we went into rehearsal again. So he had new tunes, and we just went in there and he showed them to us, and we just, worked on them until we fleshed them out, as they say.
Right. And when you went to record, was it a different experience than the first record?
Well, the first record was pretty tedious, and if you can believe it, the second record was even more tedious.
Really?
A lot of tedium. Yeah. A lot of tedium in that band. It was, I wouldn't say that it was a, throw it down kind of, have fun and just throw it down. It was kind of tedious, both of them, I must say.
I love both of the records.
But I really think it was, a lot of that tedium had to do with the way people were recording, kind of the status quo in the 70s. The way they were recording was very piecemeal, like overdubs, and then tomorrow we'll come back and do some more overdubs. And it wasn't as much like the organic way of, let's have the whole band play the song and record that, and then just add a couple overdubs, which is
that's the best. You get that live feeling.
It really sounds cool if you can do that, because the energy of the whole band playing together at the same time that's just something that you can only get when you play together.
Right.
So, I think what they should have done is record us, learning the songs, and then go, okay, let's take one, that kind of thing. But they didn't approach it that way. It was they approached it in a very piecemeal way.
Do you know if anyone has any video of rehearsals or any live gigs or anything in the studio?
There was, they recorded, they videotaped us once or once or twice, just to, so we could critique ourselves and kind of look at ourselves and go, yeah, that's cool, yeah, that's not cool, or, do that, don't do that, that kind of thing, like the body, watching how you moved and that kind of stuff.
Right.
We just kind of to be able to critique ourselves. And but they probably recorded over that, used it for the next.
Man, I would sure love to see, anything live from any of those first two records.
I mean, it was just, you had to have this heavy, serious equipment in those days to be able to videotape anything. It wasn't, people weren't just running around with little video. Everything was big.
And big and bulky and heavy, yeah.
5 years down the road, there was, things were getting smaller, and you could start, like regular people could do it. But it was just a time when, and it was pre-MTV. It was about 4 years before MTV, and the technology hadn't, they still had this really big, heavy equipment that, people.
Okay, so after the second record, what was the next step? Any shows you guys did? What tours did you after the second record?
Well, I don't remember crystal clear. I mean, those itineraries, I think, pretty much spell it out. If you look at those, you'll see exactly where and when. I mean,
Yeah, I looked through all that stuff, and thank you so much to have that. That's like gold. I mean, I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, I left your place, and I'm like looking at this going, do I really have these things?
It's just straight out documentation of what Piper did,
So what was the reason that after that second record, it was pretty much done?
Well, I was musically dissatisfied with the direction it was going, and I had started writing songs, and I was, I wanted to play something that I was ready to move on. And so I went over to Billy, and I told him, I've got these new songs. I played them for him. He liked them. One of them was in G tuning, by the way. And I said, but I'm quitting. I've already joined another band. And that's exactly what happened, Mickey. I got tired of it. That's exactly what happened. You can, if you want to, however you want to, you can take that, do with that, whatever you want. But
look, it breaks my heart that the band broke up. You know that.
Al, and there's not that many people that care about, or even know that Piper ever existed. And it was a great experience for us. I mean, I know that we'll never forget it. Billy went on and did some great things. So, for him, Piper was a, stepping stone, and certainly I can't, speak for him, but, for me, it was the only time I was ever in the big time, see?
Right.
It was just like had a 2-year glimpse of, I wouldn't trade it. I'm glad I got to do that. And, but I did my own thing and wrote my own songs. I have 40 years of songs, and they're recorded, and you can listen to them. I mean, anybody can listen to them if they want to. They exist.
I'd love to hear them.
That's what I did with the time after Piper. I continued to play. I continued to write. I became a good writer, at least to my standards. I became a good writer and did things that I'm, pleased with. And, I progressed through several, phases, if you want to call them that. But yeah, I kept writing and recording and playing gigs. They just were in small places. I didn't have a record deal, and one time with my punk rock band, I had a record deal, but I fucked it up. I fumped ball, as we sometimes do, But Casablanca, we had a couple people at Casablanca wanted to sign the Smart Pills, and we had some solid interest in that, but that didn't work out because I fucked it up, and I won't go into detail about it.
Right.
And that's where my one song that I made money from came from, because it was on a TV show.
What show was that?
It was called Square Pegs.
Yes, I know that show.
There was a new wave chick by the name of Josie Cotton. She had a record on Electra Asylum.
Yes.
And she recorded my song called No Pictures of Dad on that record, and that brought me mailbox money, royalty money over the years.
Nice.
And
that's the best money that it's the money that keeps giving.
showed me how the business really works. The business is really about publishing. It's really
Right.
publishing,
And Billy, Billy owns all of his publishing.
No, but I wasn't able to, turn that into a more of a thing that I could, bank on. But I got to see how it works, and in fact, I visited my publisher the day before we visited out in L.A. just recently.
Right.
He's doing great. Her late husband, was the producer he was producing me, and they were shopping a deal for me as well. And so, yeah, I have demos all through the years of my stuff. I'm proud of it. I never got to finish any of them in a real studio, that kind of thing. But the demos are they're decent representations of the material. And,
well, one of these days, I would love to hear some of those songs.
You can. I mean, I just kept doing it. I mean, you can hear. There's some stuff on my YouTube channel, but it's under the name Will Ivy.
Will Ivy. Okay, I'm going to check that out.
That's the name I've been using for the music for the past 20 years. But I list my other pseudonyms on there. I mean, it will say, if you go on there, it'll say Will Ivy, a.k.a. Alan Oliver, Alan Nolan, this one and that. There's a couple other ones. Get Smart, when I was in the Smart Fields, I was Get Smart. And, so I kind of made up different names. Like Ariel Bender with Luther Grove. I mean, everybody has a name.
Right.
So Alice Cooper,
Exactly. But, I want to tell you, we've had discussions. Piper is one of those bands. Every kid has those 2 or 3 bands that really change their life.
Yeah.
And Piper was one of those bands. And my whole life, I'm turning people onto Piper. All the time. I mean, since the 70s. And it breaks my heart that the band broke up. I wish there would have been another couple records at least, to see what the direction and where it would have went.
If we'd have gotten some traction, with the first record, and that was kind of, I mean, that's really what it was that, okay, I wanted to play punk rock, okay, but also, and this is a big deal, when you asked me why Piper broke up, we were dropped by A&M. Nobody knew that but us, but we were dropped by them. They didn't pick up our option.
You're kidding. So I didn't know that.
People were between labels. And so I thought, well, if there's ever a good time to leave a band, it's when they don't have a record deal. So I thought that, well, that's convenient. It seems like a good time to jump ship. That's exactly what I thought. We don't have a label.
Oh, wow. That is something I had no clue of.
I jumped ship because we were in between labels. And, we would have got another label. Aucoin would have hooked that up. It wasn't,
right.
That would have happened easily. But I took that as that was the opportune moment to jump ship. And, I was only 22 years old, I was like,
Now, let me ask you this. Something that just popped into my head. So you played the slide on Sail Away.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys were going in to record that, was it like somebody say, hey, did Billy say, I want you to play slide, or you just started doing it? How did that come to be?
I made that up.
I made
up the da, 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 da. I just heard that in my head. I just played that, and he, Billy liked it. I mean, he could have vetoed it, but he liked it, and I just composed that whole slide thing all the way through, and nobody said, well, why don't you do that and not do that. Nobody said anything. They liked the whole thing in its entirety, and I just improvised it. And, of course, once I had it on the record, I pretty much played it the same way every time, because to me, that's how I operate. I just, okay, it goes like this. If the part's good, play the part the same friggin' way every time.
And his vocals match that.
But yeah, I just improvised that. But yeah, it kind of echoes. It kind of doubles up. I just wanna sail away. I was following him, but it sounds cool to follow his vocal behind it. He liked it, but yeah, that was improvised by me. When we were learning it, and that just became the slide part. And at the very end, when I just kind of glance down, I go like that, like all the way down, real slow. I just thought that, well, that sounds like a ship sailing off into the horizon or something,
What a great song. What a great record. Both records are amazing. And Alan, thank you so much for taking this time and telling us, the whole, your whole life, basically, up into moving to New York and joining one of my all-time favorite band, Piper. I can't thank you enough, and I'm glad we got to reconnect.
Likewise.
And
well, we're gonna see you. We'll get together again, man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. How far away are you from Los Angeles? How many hours drive is that?
Well, it's going to take you about 6.
6 hours?
It'll take you 5.5, 6. Yeah.
It's not too far.
It's one tank of gas, though. On my hybrid.
Perfect. Oh, you got a hybrid. I got a Jeep.
one tank each way, but yeah.
I'm hoping now, I'm going to interview everyone. I want to do this whole retrospect of Piper, and and just let the world know what an amazing band this is.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm proud of it. I mean, I love Billy's songs. I mean, he's a great writer, great singer, great player, super talent.
Amazing writer. One of my all-time favorite writers.
He's he plays guitar like I would. I mean, when I hear him play, it's like he's my kind of guitar player. I really dig his guitar playing a lot. And he's got a lot of stuff in him. I mean, the
I'd sure like to see you guys all jam again one time. For all time's sake, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You never know, my friend. You never know.
A nice idea, sure.
All right, Alan. I've taken up too much of your time already. Thank you again so much. We're going to stay in touch. I'm going to make sure that I get everybody else's interviews here with this, and we're going to let the world know what an amazing band Piper was.
Well, I have nothing but love for those guys. It's just an awesome thing that we shared together. There's a bond.
Exactly. And I'm going to talk to everybody and put this all together, and it'll be for everybody to hear.
And, and I haven't I've spoken to the other guys since, but I haven't spoken to Billy at all. And he always has my best. I mean, he's a great guy, and he's thought of very highly by me, so.
Perfect.
That's a fact.
Well, thanks again, and we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. I'll talk to you later, Mickey. Thanks
all right.
so much.
Have a good night, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
There he goes. Alan Lane Nolan. if you haven't had any chance in your lifetime to listen to those two Piper records, I highly recommend them. They're both amazing. Straight up real rock and roll. That's the end of the first Rock and Roll Station podcast. Thanks for tuning in.